All right, so you should be able to see my screen. Let me know if you can't see it in the chat. Um, looks like something wasn't done properly when this was set up. Looks like I have to admit everyone as they add. So I apologize in advance if I do get caught up, and I just want to make sure I can add people as they attempt to come in. But so today is really a precursor for the mentorship program, or for anyone looking to really get started in real estate investing. This really covers the basic strategies you would employ as a newbie investor. And so as we go through them today, feel free to drop your messages, or I'm sorry, your questions in the chat, or let me know if you have any questions. We will have a Q&A at the end. That's the part I really like to get to, because it allows people to give me really pointed questions, really direct questions, and really help people overcome some of the challenges they may have with taking a leap to start investing. I don't even want to say taking a leap, because it comes with such a connotation. But so this particular presentation today, we will cover everything from tax liens to fix and flips. However, obviously with my experience and my expertise is in a more narrow focus when it comes to real estate investing. I know a lot of people who pretty much dabble in all of it, and most investors do that from time to time. It's not uncommon to see wholesalers start off as wholesalers and end up doing something totally different. So we'll go through that. I will say, of course, as a disclaimer, this is not a presentation for investing, or a presentation to get you to invest, as much as more so to educate and share my knowledge for those that are interested in taking initial steps. So a little bit of background on myself. Obviously, my name is Chris. I am actually a native of Atlanta, Georgia. I am currently the associate broker at the Real Estate Gurus. I have my own real estate business, real estate company, Mitchell Realty Group, focused heavily in real estate investing and development. My background is in engineering, so I actually got my BS from Jackson State University. Worked in engineering for quite a while, and in the midst of that, took the time to pursue my interest and passion at the time as a sort of as a hobby, and that slowly began Mitchell Realty Group to where we are now. I actually just got accepted into Georgia State's Masters of Commercial Estate program earlier this year, so we just started that. Really excited about taking the next steps, growing my business, and getting deeper and exposing myself into the realm of commercial real estate. Because what we'll cover today is real estate investing on a very surface level when you think about residential real estate, but there's really deep waters out there when it comes to even to scale on residential, but a lot of times that becomes commercial at that point. So we'll get more to that as we go. I'm licensed in Georgia currently and working on Mississippi, so hopefully that'll be wrapped up before the end of the year. I hope it's not asking me to admit someone else. I don't know how to automatically do this. Let's see what it does. I'm sorry, guys, give me 1 second here. All right, view, admit all. Let's see if that works. All right, let's get back here, jump right back in. So like I said, I'm licensed in Georgia, working on my license in Mississippi for some of the work that we've been doing out there. Hopefully that'll soon be to come. And as far as contact information for me personally, my Facebook and Instagram is there at the bottom, as well as 2 of the other businesses that I've started in the real estate space. One being Rough Ashlar, which is the construction arm of our business. And then we have Thrive Jackson, which is our community development corporation, a nonprofit organization we just started right around a year ago. So that's still in its infancy. And we use that as far as a lot of the auxiliary work to what we're doing in Jackson. So I'll jump right in. For my newbies, I'll start on a very low level and I'm going to work our way up. For our newbies, when we look at real estate investing, um, when we say what is real estate investing? So, of course, investing in anything is, from a simple standpoint, you typically put some capital in. There's some work that is done, whether you're doing it, whether there's some operator that does it or business that does it. And that equity yields a return to you. A lot of people think on a basic level when they think investing, they think the stock market, which is great. However, there are people that to invest in anything. One of the guys that I have been in contact with recently about some large scale investing, he actually helps investors buy farms. It was weird to me. I didn't know that this was a thing, but I've even seen real estate developers buy orange tree farms and build residential real estate in there. So it looks different. It's only limited to your creativity. Of course, you have things that allow you to mitigate risk that are the safer bets, obviously. So anyone that wants to invest in something like Zoom in the stock market, it's a much more simple approach. However, when it comes to real estate investing, you have what I believe is the trifecta effect of your investing. So I think a lot of times when we think stocks, you put money in, the company hopefully appreciates in value. The value of the company appreciates, whether that's increased revenue, minimize expenses, new leadership, expanded business, whatever their growth model is, and that whatever that looks like, those shares increase in value, and you get the difference, obviously, when you sell. That's pretty straightforward. I think that's like one dimensional when you think of investing. One of the things I love about real estate, when you look at this chart here, real estate checks all of the boxes. No other major investment vehicles check the boxes as much as real estate. So of course, you buy a property and it appreciates in value. So yes, you get the same benefit as a stock. You get the equity buildup, as you see here. But on top of that, you get things that I like to call the added benefits of real estate investing, which is depending on your investment strategy, you may get cash flow. So that's passive income. A lot of times with real estate, there's some tax advantage, whether it's your homestead exemption as a individual owner, or whether you're being able to refi, pull some equity out, and because of your approach and strategy with that investment, you're not paying a lot, or if any, taxes on that. One of my favorites that I personally doesn't really have as much value, but I think it impacts a person's ability to see the power in it, is that it's a hard asset. It's not. I have shares of Amazon and Tesla. It really is ones and zeros on an app in my phone. It's a bunch of digital data that I really, of course, I'm sure we could get a physical document to represent those shares, but it's totally different when you own a property. You can go to and utilize at any moment. So that all of that, I believe, is what it should be a major why when it comes to why you should invest in real estate. It's one of the best vehicles you can use. And I believe a lot of people have this high threshold, this high hurdle in their mind that it takes to start investing in real estate. But those close to me know, that are familiar with the Chocolate House, understand that I started investing in real estate with as little as $5,000. That was my first investment. Obviously, I had to pull capital with a partner. However, this is not something where you have to have, $50,000 to start. You, with a group of friends, could, even how small or how big that group is, could start investing as early as today. So when we look at what is real estate investing, a lot of times, it is this overarching umbrella of so many ways you can be involved in a real estate investing industry. So when you look at, these are some of the most common ways you see a lot of people investing in real estate. So you have tax liens, which essentially is you buying the tax lien on the property, and being able to generate some interest from that. You have fix and flips, which is my bread and butter, obviously, where you're buying a dilapidated or you're buying an abandoned or an eyesore property. If you're familiar with any of the popular shows on HGTV, whether it's Fixer Upper, Flip or Flop, or any of the shows of that nature, that's the fix and flip strategy being executed there. You have buy and hold, which is, I personally like to think of it akin to fix and flip, but it varies. A lot of people think owning rental properties and being a landlord is is not glamorous, and it's not what I believe we perceived, or at least my generation perceived, when it comes to the business of being a landlord. So that's, of course, collecting passive income from rent. And then, of course, you have wholesale, which is an entry point for most people, especially when they don't have a wealth of knowledge or a wealth of experience near or in real estate. I think I've seen wholesaling become, I've seen people start wholesaling once they're taught that, and I've seen them create life-changing businesses for themselves, their families, and a lot of people around them. So when we dig into tax liens, one of the things that, this is pretty cut and dry, simple, is this. Everyone who owns a house or owns property has to pay taxes. When you don't pay those taxes, that municipality, typically your county or your city, whatever that looks like, will issue a lien on the property. And if you're not familiar with liens, if you're not familiar with these things, these are things that I teach in my real estate investing program and go into more detail about. But tax liens are the highest priority when it comes to liens. So if you have a tax lien, regardless of the circumstances, if that property changes hands, that tax lien has to be paid first. If you're familiar with, like me, everyone says Uncle Sam gets his money first, and that's in real estate, that's where that comes from. So if you don't pay your taxes, a tax lien investor may come and pay the taxes. I've seen in some markets where they're substantially overpay those taxes, and now the homeowner has an obligation to not only repay that investor the amount that they paid, but with interest. And you'll see a lot of people love this investing strategy because, of course, you're guaranteed some interest. It's not typically world changing. It's not an extreme amount of interest, but it's a great way to grow your money. But if the lien isn't paid within a certain time period, you actually have legal ramifications to essentially seize the property, to take ownership of that property through your tax lien. So I know a lot of people love that because they have used that to create a massive portfolio of real estate by simply investing in tax liens. A lot of times those tax liens, more often than not, they're not extremely high. So again, that's a low cost way for a lot of people to get in when they're not well versed and want a point of entry. Wholesale, I'll cover that one next. Wholesaling is one of my favorites because you essentially don't really need much with a little know-how, knowledge, and expertise, understanding rather, and a little hustle, depending on where you are. This can be a great way to not only enter into the world of real estate investing, but to generate capital pretty quickly, large sums of capital to start expanding your real estate investing strategies and portfolio. So when we look at wholesaling is one of my favorite because essentially you're the middleman. So with anything that typically in our consumer economy, typically anything we purchase or touch is processed through a middleman of some kind. So the manufacturer may produce the Blue Yeti, however, we're actually buying it through Best Buy. So Best Buy gets some cut of that product that's sold. When it comes to wholesaling real estate, it's pretty much the same thing. A lot of people call it trading or selling contracts. Trading contracts for real estate options and stocks, but selling contracts, that's wholesaling. So, for example, a lot of the properties that I buy are typically abandoned, like I said, dilapidated homes that we intend to fix and flip, which I'll cover next. A lot of times we're buying those properties from wholesalers or from distressed owners. So if you're a distressed owner or you may inherited a property, you don't really want anything to do with it. You meet a young, energetic guy with some hustle, and he says, "Hey, I want to buy this house for 50K. It's abandoned, the roof is falling in, it needs so much work, but we'll take care of the taxes and we'll pay 50K for the house." And what happens is he'll take that contract with that initial seller and turn around and find an end buyer. So he has no interest in actually owning the property. He knows there's value in it. So what he does, he buys it and sells it to a end buyer, typically an investor or a developer like myself, for a either an increased fee, bird dog fee, whatever you want to call it. A lot of times it's called an assignment fee, because the technical process is that you're assigning your rights in that contract to your end buyer. So if I buy a house from a distressed seller or put a contract on this house and I sell it to MRG for 10 grand more, so let's say I have it on a contract for 50, I say, okay, I'll close in 60 days or 30 days, and I tell MRG, hey, you can buy this property for 60K and you have to close within 60 days. So you actually end up, depending on how it works, there's so many particulars that go into different ways the transaction can look. So you have things like double closings, or you may have things, or you may have a single close where the wholesaler completely assigns everything and he just gets the assignment fee when his end buyer closes the deal. I've seen people, typically this is something that requires, like I said, a lot of hustle. You're massaging very difficult situations. You're coordinating very risky situations because, like I said, they're the distressed seller and then your buyer typically, unless you're in a market where, like Atlanta, where things don't sit very long, you may have some work to find that end buyer. So I think wholesaling is really amazing though, because I've seen people get assignment fees as low as $500, $2,500, $5,000. I've seen people get assignment fees for north of $120,000. So these things are possible. Of course, these depend, all these things depend on the type of deal. Typically if you want to wholesale something and make, the higher end, like I said, 100 plus, you're looking at wholesaling either lots of land, commercial properties, batches of residential properties, or you're in a market that can command that and you've been able to really secure a great deal. This is something I really would love to spend more time on for people that are interested, because I know this is a great way to start with minimal startup costs and startup resources. With good understanding of contracts and a good understanding of how the process works, you're off to the races and able to close your first transaction within a month. I really want to skip ahead and we're going to go to fix and flip, and we're going to come back to buy and hold, simply because one of the unique things that I teach my students in my investor training program is how to utilize a fix and flip strategy and transition that into a buy and hold strategy, or to kind of mix that into their business model, because the best thing is to create a portfolio of assets where you have low debt service but a consistent flow of passive income. But we'll get to that. Before we get to that, I want to talk about fix and flips. Again, it's my bread and butter. I love fix and flips because I'm a constructor. I love the transformation process. I love seeing things that no one would even possibly think that house would look like that. So typically with fix and flip, like I said, that looks very much like your HGTV. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy a distressed and ugly property, maybe like the one you see in this picture here. I believe this is one I looked at a few years back in the west side of Atlanta. And there was a street of properties like this. I'm willing to bet now, I'm going to include that in next time I do this presentation. I'm going to get an after picture because I'm willing to bet that property doesn't look like that now. It probably doesn't even resemble that. But this was a few years back, and this was, the west side of Atlanta has been booming for a while now. So I imagine that whole street looks different. But essentially, you're taking a property that looks just like this and rehabbing. You're restoring it. You're adding the value. That's called the value add strategy. Whether you're doing it in residential or commercial, it's the value add strategy. So we're buying ugly properties. The uglier, the better, because that's the cheaper typically you can get it. The more distressed it is, the better leverage you have in negotiating a lower price. And I teach my investors how to my mentees and my students, I teach them how to use that information to their advantage, and also how to, this is one of the first things people do is they underbid on their renovations or their rehab. And I teach them to be very conservative in all their projections, simply because this is, I think it's relatively simple, but it's not easy. And it only takes a few dings on the head for something really good to start looking like really bad. So this is something I think, it really depends on the scale and how intimately you want to be involved. A lot of people that use a fix and flip strategy, they take on a more of a finance role where they are the owner of the property. They have someone that they have a construction partner or a GC or someone involved to help manage the construction, project manager. And of course they list it for a higher price. However, my own experience, I started doing this from scratch. I was grateful to have a great mentor who's been my mentor and broker to help me really dive deep into real estate investing. And he actually took me under his wing and showed me and exposed me and expanded my network so that I could pretty much do a lot of that myself. So if you've ever been to any of my sites or seen any of the content I've shared about our projects, a lot of times it's me or someone on my team, someone that's been there and familiar with what that looks like. So that is where the risk comes in my opinion, is the rehab and construction. A lot of people say, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything about that. And I really want to overly communicate to you that it is not as nearly as daunting as most people think. It's really not. With a few simple systems in place, you can mitigate your risk even when you don't know how. And that's something I share in my course, as far as being able to know what to do when you're starting from scratch. So vetting contractors or subs for your projects, and being able to know how to manage that. I've heard so many newbie investors, oh, I gave my GC his, $20K deposit. I never saw him again. Oh, I did this. They got 90% of the way done and I never saw them again. I've had that happen to me. So a lot of this I've learned from experience. A lot of this I've learned from my mistakes, and I help shorten that learning curve for people that participate in my program to learn for themselves. It is something, honestly and truly, extremely rewarding, because you learn a skill, you learn something that I would say brings a sense of freedom. I can't explain it really great in detail verbally of what that feels like. But I will be honest, my first project, before it was even sold, when we finished, I knew I was hooked. Oh, I could do this again. This is not what I thought it was. This is not the doom and gloom every episode of Flip or Flop tends to show of, stomach churning, not sleeping. And I've had experiences like that. I've had stomach churning, not sleeping experiences. I've had a project that I was already had expense overruns on, and then to have my roof start leaking. So these are things I've experienced, and I can help manage and help direct those interested in learning that, to prevent them from having those same harsh experiences. I will say though, It is not for the faint at heart. This is probably the most rewarding because it is the most challenging. It is extremely capital intensive. It is one of those things, one of the best things I think anybody can get from HGTV, DIY, any shows that shows this strategy being employed. I think one of the best things they show is that you have to endure. I can't say on how many projects, even now, as seasoned as I am, I feel like there's still a challenge in every project that's unique for me. And although a lot of things may seem simpler or easier to me now with my experience, there's always some unique challenge that I don't think I experience it as much anymore. But when I first started, I feel like every house there was a point where I said, I'm never doing this again. Oh, I'm never touching it. I'm never doing this again. Oh, I got bamboozled. Oh, it was supposed to be so simple, so easy. And on HGTV, when you see them encounter a problem, they're quick to make a decision. They're decisive. They're intuitive to know when they need help, when they need to explore options, and they execute. And that's it. That's one of the best things I can share with you with the fix and flip strategy is to endure and be smart about what that looks like. I've seen so many people, so many projects. I can't say I've seen people. Most of the people I know that are doing this, that have been doing this, they have tough skin. They were bred for this, and they're getting tougher skin. So they're the sharks in the water, or the sharks, the people that are becoming sharks in the water. But I have seen a ton of projects in Atlanta that just stall, and a lot of times you do. I don't know anybody who has 100% on schedule under budget. That's just not very common. No matter how much you project, I tend to use pretty thick contingencies in my rehabs and my scope of works, but I'll be honest, I still run into expense overruns in rehabs or whatever it looks like. And it's one of those things you just have to be able to endure that. And most times, I'll be honest, if you made a great investment from the jump, you bought at a great price, and you did well, even with your overruns, you tend to come out handsomely well, handsomely well. So don't let that deter you. But I will say you can't let the project stall. You can't stop your process because you don't know what it looks like moving forward, whether it's a capital issue, whether it's a personnel staffing issue, whatever that looks like. It can be a lot to manage. Of course, we've covered that. I think I've covered this really well. This is something, if you are part of the program, have been part of the program, or interested in becoming a part of the program, this is what I teach first. Wholesaling is a part of learning this because you have to know the market. In your role, you're probably going to deal with a wholesaler, and this is what their business model looks like. And so I think you catch a bit of that, but I teach this because this is something that I feel can really be transformative in the wealth creation power that you experience in real estate. And I love this because it actually allows you to segue really smoothly into the buy and hold strategy. When you look at buy and hold, it's just being a landlord. You're typically, you own a property, maybe your note or your debt service on a property is $1,000, but the rent you're collecting is $1,300. So with that $1,300, you're able to actually capture the difference. That's your passive income. I really slept on the power of passive income until we bought the apartment building in Jackson last year. That really opened my mind to, oh, wow. If you have 10, 13 doors of rental property, in rental properties, you call them doors, but you have 13, or because it's not always properties, right? Because if you may have one property with multiple units. So if you have 13 units or 13 doors and you're collecting an average positive cash flow of $500, that's really great. That's $6,500 a month that you get pretty regularly without even doing anything. I don't want to oversimplify how easy that is and how simple that is, because of course you do have to be very smart, very diligent. I perceive a greater risk with the buy and hold strategy as it is straightforward, because a lot of times your positive cash flow, that yield is very low. So it only takes one large expense to eat up your yearly revenue in that. So I don't like it for a direct strategy, but what I love about it is the compounded power that you can utilize when you start with the fix and flip and your exit strategy. So instead of selling the property at a higher price, maybe you buy and hold it. So for many people that's familiar with this, the BRRR method. So you buy it, you renovate or rehab, and you rent it out and refi, or refi then rent it out. Most smart, experienced investors I know, they already have a renter ready before they finish the rehab. They have the tenant in collecting rents before they even complete the refi. And that's really amazing. I've seen people build portfolios, mass portfolios. I wish someone had told me when I first started, do this. Every other property you do, hold on to it. Yes, of course, no one saw things like COVID coming, and its implications to that market. And of course, you have a lot of people out of a job, millions of people unemployed. So maybe if you're a landlord right now, you may be struggling collecting your rents. But I'll be honest, from my experience and most of the investors I know that own units on multiple properties, they are doing really well even amidst the pandemic. I say as well, this is one of the better benefits of multifamily. If you have a single family home, you're collecting a positive cash flow of $500 or $400 every month, but then that one tenant can't pay rent because they lost their job. Now you're actually negative and having to cough out cash month over month to maintain that. So with multifamily, obviously, for example, you may only need 30% occupancy to cover your debt service, which is outstanding. So when you think about that, it's just a compounding effect. One of the best benefits of the fix and flip segueing into the buy and hold is the compound impact of being able to hold the property. Remember, you bought it at extremely low value. Yes, you refied out, but typically you're going to refi at most 70% to value. So you still have 30% of equity in that home that's growing with the appreciation of that property, as well as your positive cash flow. So you're getting monthly passive income, you're getting appreciation in the value, in the equity that you have in the property, and typically you're getting some tax benefit from that as well. So it is a trifecta compounding impact, and to me that mitigates your risk with the buy and hold directly, because by doing the fix and flip, you've handled all the renovations and repairs that's necessary. And if you do it right and you do it thorough, you don't have to worry about a surprise expense eating away most of your income for that year. I think I want to skip ahead now. I know we're running out of time. I want to leave some time for questions if anybody had any. But lastly, I want to cover funding your investment deal. So remember in the beginning of my presentation today, I shared with you that I started investing with as little as $5,000. When Atlanta's market was a lot different when I started. So I believe the first property I bought was under 70K. So of course my down payment with that, we use what's called private money lending, or private money. It's similar to hard money, depending, and really the difference when you see private money, hard money, soft money, it really just comes down to the terms. A lot of it is sourced the same. It's high net worth individuals, people with extensive capital that they're pretty much lending out to make money on their money. That's their investment, is investing in you and your investment. And with that, a lot of times the difference really comes down to the terms. Hard money tends to be a little bit more aggressive. Your rates tend to be higher. There's not much wiggle room on time. You have a very short time period. It's very expensive. Private money can live and operate very much the same, only there's a little bit more wiggle room. They tend to provide you with lower rates. They're not looking to really, for lack of better words, rape you like they do with hard money. Of course, you have partnerships. One of the things I definitely want to make sure I cover, savings and retirement. One of the things I didn't learn until the engineering company I worked for before I started doing this full time exposed me to self-directed IRAs. So a lot of people have retirement accounts, but a lot of people don't even touch it and manage it. So that's another webinar we'll touch on. But a lot of people don't realize that you can actually take that money and invest in real estate just by changing the type of retirement account you have. Of course, there's some perceived risk with that. Could go into that further. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me directly. But I would stress the power of pooled capital. Like I said, I took 5,000. I brought my investor in. I had a partner, and we tag teamed it. I learned so much from that experience. I learned so much of how high net worth individuals do things. So if you look at a lot of these mixed use developments and multifamily developments that's being done by a lot of family offices, private capital, a lot of them still club their money together as well. So it still may be 3, 4, or more separate parties involved, but all of them may have 10, 20, tens of millions of equity into the deal. So I've gone on to my strategy and how we do things. I want to. Does anyone have any questions that they want answered that maybe how risky is doing wholesale? Wholesale, risky wise, I would say your risk is pretty much limited to your earnest money. And if you do that right, that's not risky either because you're reimbursed with that. I can go into that to more in detail, but typically with wholesaling, you don't see a lot of risk there because you don't really own the property. You're not really investing a lot of money into the property. Typically, you're only putting up earnest money to get the property under contract, and then from there you have a ticking time bomb to find and execute your end buyer. A lot of times, experienced wholesalers will get that end buyer to reimburse them. Uh-oh, I don't know if we have any more questions. It looks like we're running out of time here. Let's see. I don't see any more questions. Chat. Buy and hold. How do you feel about Section 8 HUD? I personally, I'm not sure if this is going to cut out. We'll see. I think they're going to give me a little buffer time here and see what happens. I personally am not the biggest fan of buy and hold Section 8 HUD homes. I know a ton of people that have great success with that. But that personally, I'm more of a at market or workforce, level. I typically don't like to deal with Section 8 or HUD tenants only because of that business model looks a little bit different in practice. And I personally am not a fan of it, but I can teach that to you. And I mean, it's really pretty much the same. But of course you have guaranteed income from the government, but you also have a different class of tenant. And I typically don't like to deal with that class of tenant. No shade on anyone that wants to invest that way. I think it's a great way to build a portfolio.